So thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited for this particular series on COVID. Today we're going to be talking with a lawyer, Andrew Brown. Welcome.
Thanks, Jim. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited about today. I mean, with COVID, we get a lot of questions on the legal side. I also know your approach are very collaborative, forward-looking, and I think there's a lot of great stuff that we'll be chatting about today. So to kick it off, you tell us a little bit about yourself and the firm you're with.
Sure. Yeah. So been running Brown Lawyers for the last 9 years. We have, evolved into providing a service that's focused on what we call preventive law. Basically, it differs from other lawyers and legal services because we're looking at what can we do today to make sure these problems that we see happen all the time, just as a result of being in business or life in general or having relationships. What issues do they typically lead to, and what are we doing to make sure that doesn't happen to us, or to mitigate the chances that they manifest in big problems? And so this, it really comes down to this quote there at the bottom from Albert Einstein: "Intellectuals solve problems, geniuses prevent them." And we think everybody wants to be a genius. So particularly in the area of estates as well, so personal finance and wealth management and generational wealth. But big part of that is our business practice as well, and preparing business owners for selling their business succession, buying and selling, because those are all events that are going to happen. We don't get to take our business with us, right? We know we're going to get out of it. So what are we doing today to make that process, bottom line, better for us? Well, the personal satisfaction that comes with that, but also the financial compensation and benefit that comes with that, because the more work we do, the bigger payoff it's going to be. And also, what that means for our family and the people that are closest to us, right? Because any times that those result in problems, that's going to be a problem for the business, it's going to be a problem for you, it's going to be a problem with the family, and we can avoid it, we can't stop bad things from happening, but we can lessen the impact of it on a family.
Right. And I would say what I like about the proactive approach, and we say this in pretty much every video, preparing for a transaction is all about planning, putting the pieces in place. With COVID in particular, what we found is the businesses that have the pieces in place have been very prudent at planning, have really weathered the storm quite well. They haven't been distracted by maybe some of the pieces that should have been in place. Instead, they're looking at opportunities. And so I think collaboration, planning, forward thinking is such a good investment, but unfortunately, we don't see it very often. Tell me a little bit more about Brown Lawyers, your approach to business owners, and what collaboration looks like for you guys.
Right. I think what you've identified there with those that were prepared are obviously weathering it better. Like, I think that's pretty intuitive. No one knew a pandemic was coming, right? No one had plans in place for a pandemic. And that's not the point. Isn't to be prepared for a pandemic, but the point is to be prepared for any number of interruptions, right? To our business or our lives, right? We know that, okay, well, what if our people couldn't come in, right? What if our customers went out of business, right? What are we going to do? How are we staying? You can anticipate those things, right? You can ask yourself and be ready for those things. It's not a matter of going, okay, well, here's our pandemic playbook. Don't feel bad. Nobody had one, kind of thing. But they may have had things to be able to, okay, if we need to work remotely, we can do that, right? We can still, how do we still tap into our supply chain? Well, here we've got plan A, B, and C to be able to do that. So for us, it is it doesn't happen. It's not a being, collaboration and being prepared and putting the plan together and working with business owners is not a short term one off project, right? Truly, the best results come from ongoing development for planning and for starting off. All right, am I when we are a startup company, do we have all the basics in place? And then as life goes on for a business, evolving with its needs based on whatever the objectives are of the business owner. But that's one of the big things, is identifying, is there an objective, right? And having and articulating that, because we all start a business because we do have goals. Well, we need to know them. I always ask clients, for new clients right away, incorporating, I got this idea. I always ask, what is the exit plan? Because you are going to exit, right? Either on your terms, or it's just going to take over from you, right? It's going to be out of your control. Let's do it on your terms. And that may not be clear right away, but it's still an ongoing question that needs to be asked. And we build towards that. And that's just not lawyers, right? Because this is where more of the collaboration comes in. It's all the advisors that are a part of it, right? Whether that's the tax, the accountant, advisors being on board with that. It's the business coaching that is essential. It's the financial and insurance folks along the way. Any number of those roles, but being able to, when all of those are in place and when we're all working towards an objective and exit, then it's going to go well. It doesn't mean it's a straight line by any means, and that's where the ongoing works in, right? Success A to B doesn't go in a straight line. We see up and down all the time, and you only are able to weather all that and stay focused if there is that ongoing support. So that's really what I advocate. I recommend that people are looking at their core thing, and that doesn't mean you're spending every month, every week you're looking at these things, but there's got to be some structure, some sort of discipline around long-term planning, exit planning.
Yeah, and I find that very refreshing, because I think if most sellers would take, they start really early on and put the pieces in place, and let's call it a deal team, or as you refer to as an advisory team. If they do that well in advance, by the time you get ready to sell, there'd be less panic. There would be a quicker due diligence process, and everyone's life would be a little bit easier. I really like this piece too, when you talk about, the different things that you look at, the holistic piece, of business ownership and what owners should be looking at, and also, the elephant component. There's got to be something to the elephant. So can you tell us a little bit about, how you guys work with firms and what that relationship looks like?
Yeah, we are from we know what we do, and we know that the legal is not the be all and the end all, far from it, right? It's essential. However, it is just one of the essential pieces of the big picture. And the idea of being able to work together with other professionals that are advising business owners and families is and having the like-minded, that we're all working together. We're all just trying to provide. We're all working towards the best interests of the business owner, of the business, of the family. It just makes it so much easier. I'll talk about the elephant in a little, but that's our mascot, and really the idea is to get talking about that elephant. And if you're mentioning the elephant, that achieves our message, because it refers to the elephant in the room, right? It's the difficult conversations, it's the hard things in life, right? And the idea is to get talking about it, because getting it out there, because that is the first step. And a lot of all of this is it's doing the things that are difficult. And big picture message here is, there's a reason why business owners, myself, yourself, Jim, have it. There's the successes that we can point to, or achievements in our lives, come from doing the hard things. It's about doing the things that are uncomfortable, whether that was education or training or taking a risk, right? We got here because we did those things. If we always took the easy route out, which is to not do those things, then we wouldn't be where we are. We wouldn't have that satisfaction in life. And so the idea is to be trying to encourage folks that success and achieving objectives and goals is not easy. No one has it easy. I can guarantee it that everyone has been through the hard things and they've failed, they've fallen on their face, but they continue to go, and they continue to do uncomfortable, push their limits. And that's how you get success. And I think that's where life makes it all worthwhile, is when you can do those things and get on the other side of it.
Yeah, and I would say selling your business is one of those things too that's a challenge, and it's definitely not something that's very easy. It's not like selling a home. It is a little bit more onerous, but you bring up some really good points here, because these are the questions we often hear from buyers. Are there contracts in place? What does their minute book look like? What does their business plan look like? What are the employee contracts? Are they updated? How long are they tied to the building, and this sort of thing? So can you talk a little bit about, from a legal, I guess, and strategic perspective, how can folks stage their business prior to going to market?
Right. Yeah. And this is where, specifically in the COVID times that we are, this is an excellent opportunity. I think most businesses and business owners that I've talked to is, even if they keep going and they've got work to do, the truth is activity out there has gone down, right? I think across the board, or at least production, productivity, because of not being able to get together, or people working from home. All of those things have resulted in some more downtime. Now is the time to seize the opportunity to put all of these kind of the legal background. They're not sexy, they're not really all that fun, but they are so important. And this is the time to let's take a look at those, because the sooner in the process you do get these prepared, the better off you're going to be. So if you've got a timeline of 5 years that you want to sell or retire, what we're talking about here is, when was the last time your corporate records, your corporate minute book was updated? Annual stuff is required. It's right in our legislation. I know the vast majority of business owners don't do that, and they do it all in the end only because there's a reason to do it other than compliance, but because they are selling, or because they are, looking for financing or audit, even worse. And so pressure and quality don't mix, right? We're not, and the thing is, the more time that goes by and we don't have records in place, it just increases the chances that there's going to be missing information because of, a shareholder passes away or leaves or whatever the case is. We don't want that. And a lot of these things, and I'll dive in a little bit deeper to them, but a lot of these things, when I say stage your business, just like when you were selling, if you're going to sell your house, you're going to get a better result when it looks good to a buyer. And that's the idea of putting these contracts, these records in place to put your business in a more favorable light to a potential buyer. Because what these mean is more certainty, right? Less risk, therefore more value to you, meaning more money in your pocket. That key contracts and relationships, when that comes down to it, is many businesses are reliant on some key relationships, whether those are suppliers, whether those are customers. So what do we have those in place? or do we have those, what I say in the legal world, are those codified, right? Because with someone, if your business is dependent on these relationships, and if someone's coming to buy it, what certainty they have that that's going to continue? You may give them all of the words and the flowers around. Well, we've been in business with these folks for the last 30 years. They've been loyal. They love us, and we don't see any reason why that's not going to continue. And it's like, well, that's all well and good, but if I can't count on it, because I can't see here that we're going to have this lined up for the next 5, 10, whatever years, or I can see what this relationship actually is, then that's a problem. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a deal breaker, but it could be like, well, I'm not willing to pay as much because I don't have the certainty there. And so I think one of the steps is, as early as possible, go, what are my key relationships for my business? And then documenting that, and then starting a process. And this is where the advice comes in and strategy comes in about, if we've never had a contract with these folks, how can we move that forward? How can we move to a place where that is, like I said, that's codified? Someone can read a piece of paper that says, this is what this relationship is all about, and this is how long it's going to last, and this is what happens next, right? And the more that's in place, again, it's better for a buyer. Same with employees, same idea there. It's very, very common for businesses to not have any employment contracts in place. Your team is likely a huge part of your business. And so if you don't have those contracts in place, a buyer is, we're worried that they're just going to bail, and that it's going to gut the team because of any number of reasons. What the terms of those employments are so important as well. On the leases side, it's going to be favorable to have something concrete. It's like if geography, location is very, very important to your business, a buyer is going to want to see that you've got that spot locked up for a while. Conversely, maybe there's going to be some contracts, whether those are relationships or employees or leases, that, maybe a buyer isn't going to want to take those on, and they want the flexibility that they can continue or not continue. So that's also important to recognize early in the process is, look, I'm going to be retiring in 5 years. I don't want to sign a 15-year lease or whatever the case may be, because a buyer may not see that as a benefit. Again, these are all contextual, but the idea is, only early on, if we start looking and planning on this, are we able to put a strategy in place to be able to get it to a point where we want to see these contracts in place. And you can also be informed about when renewals come up to go, okay, where does this fit in the plan? And so that you can keep yourself as flexible or, ready for that ultimate objective of exit. Put it on your terms, bottom line. And I think this is the time to be reviewing all of that and getting those, and even if it is just, okay, we don't have any of this, well, guess what? You're better off than you were a day ago, because at least now you know what you're missing, right? And now you can start moving forward. Wherever you are, the point is to just start about this. The corporate records part is probably the easiest fix. And it's the low-hanging fruit to get all of that up to date. And most, any lawyers will be able to handle that.
Right. Yeah, and I would say, I guess the message that I'm hearing is, even if you just started your business, incorporate some of this stuff into your culture and just start doing it, so that by the time you get ready to exit, it's not a big to-do. If everything doesn't get in place by the time you go to market, it becomes a negotiating item, and it definitely can impact what you're going to get at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. These things are best practices, because if it's not exit, right? Exit is just one, planned exit of a sale or something is just one way it's going to end. There's any number of reasons why it's going to end, and the idea is, again, not preparing for any of these specifically, other than maybe a sale. But again, if you're ready for all of those, you're in the best spot. Whether there was an illness, right, a long-term or a short-term illness, whether there was a death or anything along those lines, the more all these things in place, it still just means you're going to be able to, or your legal representatives are going to be able to get more value for the efforts that you put in for all these years. The more that these are in place, the more prepared you are. And again, I'm not talking, look, this has to be a monthly, weekly. I think if there was just some annual focus on these steps of going, okay, what does good governance look like for us? Are we good? What do we need to do? Let's just work on towards that, right? And I absolutely, and you nailed it there, part of the culture of being prepared, right? And this is what it comes down to. It's not a transaction, it's not a boxed package. However, it's just a series of best practices to be able to incorporate it. It's a philosophy, it's a culture that if as incorporated into your business and your business lives it, you live it, your team lives it, you will always be in a better spot than your neighbor, than your competitor. And even if that isn't as a bigger priority, but you're also going to be a spot that your business can continue without you, and your family or you are going to benefit financially from your efforts that have been done all the way along.
Right. So Andrew, thanks again for joining us. If folks are looking to put the pieces in place, if they're not already in place, or if they're looking for some advice, to plan for their future from a legal perspective, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, either of those are easy enough. Even contact through our website. We have a client services team that will kind of do the initial discovery. Just a phone call is really helpful. I really encourage everyone. It's business, life. We do better when we make informed choices. And the idea is to seek out the information from the folks that have it, that can apply it to your specific situation. And when you engage with a professional in this area, an advisor in any of these areas, sometimes it's just a meeting that can make all the difference, right? Just one meeting, one consultation, and maybe that sets it all up, right? Of course, sometimes it's going to be bigger projects, longer engagements, but don't be put off just by going, okay, well, what's the big picture, commitment? What am I going for? Sometimes it's just getting some nuggets that make difference, and you owe yourself that.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining us. Thank you very much. Good chatting with you, Andrew.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jim.
Take care.